Well, thank you, Mark, for that introduction. We've heard a lot, and I just want to move from the political arena to the sports arena. I'll be talking about four personalities here: Nelson Mandela, Didier Drogba, and George Okonjo. Weah was recently sworn as the president of Liberia, and when we look at the statistics of George Weah and their voter population, it turned out that about 70% of the people who came out to vote were less than 40 years. And how did that happen? And why did they vote for George Weah? I think we'll look at that. But I'll first start with Nigeria. I have some pictures on the screen so that we can just look at it. When you come to Africa, one of the most volatile areas in terms of religious conflict is Nigeria. The north is predominantly Muslims, and the south, they are Christians. They do not clash in anything. There are always differences. This person thinks my religion is most attractive and dominant, and this also thinks that. But when it comes to their football, they are the first country to come together and pray before a game, during a game, and after a game. So you ask yourself, these are people who don't agree when it comes to religion. But when it comes to their football, they forget where they come from. This is a team of about 23 players. Some are from the north, some are from the middle belt of Nigeria, and some are from the south. But you hardly hear them talking about where they come from when it comes to their football. So you ask yourself, how are they able to unite themselves when it comes to football? And aside football, they are not together. It's sometimes bothering, but it all comes to the fact that when we are able to channel our energies very well, instead of looking at where we come from, developing weapons and the rest, and concentrate on the basic things, that is sports, it can send us everywhere and make the country a very good place for people to live in, and make this continent also a very good place to live in. Let's shift our attention to North Korea and South Korea. Until the Winter Olympics, we all know that these two guys, they don't clash, they don't see each other. But the Olympics were able to bring them together. Even if it's a facade or it's a charade that they are trying to throw onto the world, it has sent a very big signal to all of us that sports indeed is something that can bring us together. So when we try to develop ourselves, develop our nations, educate our children, tell them their ideals, tell them their cultures, where they are coming from, what they are supposed to do, what they want to do as people when they grow up, one of the things I believe and my foundation believe is that sports should also be something that we should inculcate into them. Because I'm here to see a national team of a country that says that I belong to the opposition party. Because of that, we should form a team that belongs to the opposition. Let's take the US, for example. We have the Democrats and we have the Republicans. We are here to see a national team that belongs to the Democrats and a national team that belongs to the Republicans. Or we are here to see a president who says that because I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, the striker that scores the goal for us is a Democrat, so I won't celebrate because I'm a Republican. It doesn't happen when it comes to sports. So why do we spend our entire life trying to harness things that in a way helps but doesn't help finally? If we could channel our energies very well, as I said, things will go well. We look at this man, George Okonjo. 2 wars broke in Liberia. The first civil war and the second civil war. In the second civil war, they started marshalling kids less than 14 years and turning them into soldiers. And he was playing in Euro by then. He won the FIFA Best Player. But one of the things he did was to go back to Liberia and disarm these kids. And the only way he could do that is to bring that round thing onto a pitch. He is a global icon. Everybody loves to be with Weah. When they had the weapons and they saw him, they put their weapons away. Right away, they go to him. What do? They go to the pitch and play football. No wonder today he is the president of Liberia, because most of those kids he was able to disarm during the war are the people that form the 70% of the voter population now in Liberia that voted for him to become the president of Liberia. He is now the president of Liberia, not because he is a popular figure or not because he played soccer and became famous, but because of the role he played during the Civil War, marshalling forces, disarming those kids through football who were less than 15 years in 1995 and 1998, 99 thereabout. In 2018, those kids grew up to form the youth of Liberia, and they formed the 70% of the voter population. They voted for him massively. He became the president of Liberia. What would have happened if Ria had not done that? Where would he have been? The Civil War might have continued. It might have stopped. But it's something we cannot tell. But one thing we know is that he was able to disarm child soldiers through football. And after decades, they turned out and voted for him to become the president because they saw him as one of theirs. When the war broke up, the politicians were having fun. They were doing their own thing. They took their kids out of Liberia and were using people's kids to fight the war. And they grew up to realize that this is somebody who cared about us, even though when the war broke up, he wasn't part of us. He wasn't in Liberia. He came down to Liberia just to help us solve the conflicts. They made him the president. There's another man I want us to also look at, Didier Drogba. One of the most, Didier Drogba. He is a Chelsea player. He plays in Chelsea in England, where he had most of his successful careers. In 2005, 2007, war broke out in Ivory Coast. I mean, the Northerners and the Southerners created buffer zones for themselves. The Southerners were not allowed to go to the north, and the Northerners were also not allowed to come to the south. And it made the nation, they created two countries in one nation, just because the president thinks he wants to rule, and the rebels also want to rule the country. And it came to a time, they qualified for the World Cup, everybody was happy, and they had a final game to play. And the president, thinking he had the legitimate power to rule the country, think that the game should be played in Abidjan. And they told him that no, we are the players. When it comes to the national team, we have people who come from the north, we have people who come from the east, people come from the south, people come from the west. Why should it always be that we should play our soccer in the south? So he persuaded the president. They took the game to the north. For the first time in 3 years, the leaders of both factions sat down together for 90 minutes just to watch a football game. UN persuaded them to come together to sign a peace treaty. They failed. NATO did, they failed. ECOWAS did, they failed. But when the match was organized and they brought everybody together, they sat together just to watch one football game. And what happened after the game? The treaty was signed and everybody seized power. That ended the war in Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast became a very peaceful country and they lived together as one people. There is another one person too, Nelson Mandela. This is somebody I believe we all are very used to, or we know. Nelson Mandela shared a story when he was a prisoner on Robben Island. This is the way they live on Robben Island. They hardly talk to each other. They are working, but you can't just have a normal conversation with your fellow South African just because the apartheid regime created a system that they think when they see two people standing together or conversing, they are trying to plot something against the government. But it came to a time they decided that, Jack, we are on this island, we are in prison, we don't have anything. Why don't we form a football association and play together when we have our breaks? They communicated this to the authorities of the prison. Initially, they resisted, but along the line, they allowed it to happen. When that happened, the only time the prison wardens have the opportunity to talk to the prisoners is when they have a game to play. And you could imagine the kind of feeling they had. Most of them said when it comes to the time for them to play football, and they are able to interact with the prison wardens, it makes them forget that they are in prison, because they feel they are part of the world, they are part of they are part of the human race. Because the only time you have an opportunity to talk to somebody is when there is a game. Aside that, nothing happened. No wonder when they came out of prison, one of the things he fought for was to host the Rugby World Cup, host the Cricket World Cup, and then host the Football World Cup itself, because it was a tool they used to put the nation together, to reconcile the nation. Because whites in South Africa were not allowed to play on the same team with the blacks. Their national teams were predominantly white people. But when he came out of prison, he made them to realize that, look, when we were in prison, we were not allowed to talk to the prison wardens. But because of sports, because of football, we were allowed to talk to them. If we are out of prison now and we claim the apartheid has collapsed, why don't we open our national teams to everybody? So the first Rugby World Cup that was staged in South Africa, they were able to come together, blacks, whites, and they formed the South African national team. So when you go to South Africa, they call something the Rainbow Nation. They call themselves the Rainbow Nation not because of their flamboyant colors that they always display when there are things, but because they've realized that this is a country that have the Dutch, they have the English, they have the Americans, they have the South Africans, they have everybody in South Africa. We cannot say that the nation belongs to somebody because of a system. Let us come together and form a rainbow nation. So South Africa had formed a rainbow nation, and they are living together. One of the things we believe in as a foundation, when it comes down to my country, Ghana, we have about 47 languages. You can imagine a country of about 20 million population having about 47 languages. It's most difficult for you to understand your next neighbor if you are not careful, because you might speak a language they won't understand. If you are not educated and you cannot speak English, the language barrier becomes a problem. But you see, when we formed our foundation, one of the things we decided to do is to bring kids together. We brought them together in such a way that we made them to understand that irrespective of where you come from, irrespective of the language you speak, we are one as a people and we are one as a nation. If you have a talent, you play football. I'm using football as a hypothetical situation because that is where our concentration is. That is where we concentrate on. We come together as a people to play football. We come together as a people. One of the things that we do is to forget where we come from. I wouldn't say that I come from the north or I come from the south and I'm on the same thing with you and you have the opportunity to score a goal and because of that I won't give you the ball. It doesn't happen. So when these things are inculcated into them and they grow up and they grow up with it, one, they don't only become celebrities in the society, but they grow up knowing that irrespective of where we come from, irrespective of what we do, irrespective of the club I play, first of all, love for each other comes first before anything. Because if I don't believe in you, if I don't believe in what you do, I cannot be on the same pedestal with you. And that is where we looked at sports as one of the forms of diplomacy. Because if football cannot do everything, as you say, but we believe that if leaders of this world will shift most of their attention on the things we are looking at now, nuclear weapons, ISIS, Iraq, everything, and pay a little attention to sports, something that I'm here to see people fight about on the street. I believe when we walk on the streets of New York right now and you ask the average person, do you know who Serena Williams is? I believe they will know. Tiger Woods, they will know. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Donovan, and all those people. But how many of the people on this street know who the leader of South Korea is? North Korea, ISIS, Taliban, Saddam Hussein. So we live in a generation or a country where priority is being misplaced and placed on a lot of things that might not matter but matters. And the little trivial things that we are not giving our attention to, our concentration to, are the things that are bringing us together and are mobilizing us together and are creating future for ourselves. The shooting that happened in Florida in the last months or the last 2 weeks, we sat and we were trying to talk about it. I was an invited guest on a TV station back home because of what we do. And the host asked a question. Do you think that if the shooter or if those kids were involved in something active that they were doing at that time, something would have happened to them? I wouldn't say yes or no, but I believe that at that material moment, if they were involved in doing something, or if an activity were to be going on, somebody might have spotted the shooter, somebody might have seen what was going on, or his interest might even lift what he had wanted to do because he has seen something beautiful going on. So I believe and I think that most of these things we see as trivial, sports, is one of the things that if we can pay attention to, concentrate on, instead of the nuclear weapons and the ISIS and everything, the world could be a better place for us to live in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments or questions?
Okay. I'm only the guy raising the hand here, sorry.
Good. We don't have active discussions.
Excuse me. Inspired by my friend here, I decided to stand. I noticed he was the one standing before. It's interesting that we have probably only people of color here at the moment. Apparently, it happens. You're all busy, but I understand you all are. But what you say is something that I believe a lot of people in the United States, that perhaps they happens to be white, they need to hear and understand more about that. I've been to some baseball game once, and somebody woke me up. It was time to go. It was boring for me, at least. Sorry. You like it, but I didn't understand. And here they call football, and they play with the hand, and they all bump with each other. For me, football, what we do. I'm Brazilian. You guys have very good soccer. And it unites people. Like GC and I, we talk about this: music, art, and sports. They're the three things that really united people, and they put aside no matter the passport or if they have a visa or not. And we see that now there's some projects we are working that we're trying to turn war economy into art economy, or sports where Shiitas and Sunnitas will be playing, or Palestinians, Israelis, you name it. And my mom always says something. There's three things we don't talk on the dinner table: politics, religion, and soccer or football. In Brazil, there's no way. But now for you, do you live here in the US or are you in Ghana?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody was talking about the listening talks, the listening tour. And do you speak in other places, or are you talking, or how people will know where you are? Is there a way to find you, or to tell people how awesome you are and they should listen to you? And you should run for president of Ghana, maybe?
Well, that's very much. One of the things we do back home is we go to communities, pick kids that have the talent to play soccer. Because in as much as we believe soccer, it's now a very big business, a football is now a very big business, a multi-billion-dollar industry now. You can't take that away. We also believe it's one of the things, or one of the areas that we can use to unite people, to unite our nation, and to take kids out of wherever they are and give them something, and give them a future, give them hope, give them life. Let them know that they belong to a society. Let them know that, Jack, you are not wasted after all. Because most of people that do sports, let me use the word, they don't like going to school. It's kind of difficult, but it's something we should all embrace now. And in as much as it's not the best thing, it's one of the ways you can alleviate poverty out of a lot of communities, because they go back, do the sports, make the millions, come back and affect the society. And that is what they do. So what we do is to go out and scout them. I've been to a lot of countries because of football. I don't know where or how, but from here I'm moving to Holland. I'm going to do a project there just because of football. From Holland, I'll be moving to Germany. I'll be moving to Belgium. From Belgium, I'll be moving to France. And these are the things we do, not only limited to Ghana, but wherever we see the talent, wherever we hear that there is talent, we go there and we scout them. I hope I've...
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Continue with other questions or comments?
Right here, I do. Thank you. Here you
Let's don't be shy.
go. Okay, can I ask one more question, please? For how long are you here in New York?
I'll be leaving on the 10th
Okay,
because I have an appointment in Holland on the 11th.
okay.
And, but I'll be in Europe
I'm
for
not
2
asking you
weeks.
out, don't take me wrong, I want to
Oh, no, don't worry.
No, but I would like to talk to you more because
Yeah.
I feel like it's such an intimate moment now. I have
Yeah,
some
no
knowledge.
problem.
But yeah,
I'll be in Europe for 2 weeks
Okay,
before I
fantastic.
go back to Ghana for a week. Then I'll go to the UK 1st of April.
Okay.
So,
Rockstar's life right now.
Mr. Robert,
Yeah.
you come from a country that has not been colonized, Ghana.
Ghana has been colonized
By the British.
by the British. Yeah, that's right.
It's a country that has developed much better than many others. We have
Thank you.
had the pleasure, I have worked with Ghana.
Yeah.
I know that he comes from Ghana.
Yeah,
He must have been very inspiring.
that's right.
And the figures you have mentioned now from the sports world are also very inspiring.
That's right.
When you have a country where the government is invade with this inspiration and is working accordingly, I mean encouraging it, where the government is sane, this creates incentives for youngsters to look beyond anything criminal when we search for education or so. How, according to your experience, that this is not functioning in other countries where they have produced so many soccer players and exported them to us in Europe or wherever? Why is governance missing? How can you combine the governance of your politicians with the success of your sportsmen? It's a philosophical issue, but
Yeah.
I'm sure you have something to touch.
Yeah. I can talk for my country, Ghana, and I think that's where I can be factual and be very precise because I am in the industry and I found myself both ways. I come from a bag, most of my brothers are politicians, and so it's like a two-edged knife. I'm here and I'm there. Okay, when you come to Ghana, the only time politicians come together is when they are to agree on their salary because it had to do with them, and when there is a sports going on that the nation is taking part in. Aside that, governance becomes a problem. Those in opposition think that they know everything and they are right. Those in government also think that they are right. So it's sort of creates not disambiguity, but governance doesn't become smooth as it's supposed to be. But when you bring these icons together, when you bring these guys who have made it successfully in Europe, anywhere they do, but they do their sports, when they come together and say something, the citizenry are able to follow them and believe what they say than most of the politicians. I don't know about other countries, but that is what I have seen about my country. So we tend to most at times project our sportsmen to make them statesmen than our politicians, because we've enjoyed relatively peaceful atmosphere for a very long time. Ghana, if you know much about, is one of the most stable countries in Africa. We've never had any civil war. It has never happened. And I'm not sure it will happen anytime soon, because of the system in which we grew up and because of the things that we grew up seeing. But these days, attention is shifting from the politicians because they've disappointed us. They are taking the country for granted because we are living in peace and nobody will get up and take the gun. They do anything they want. So it's hard these days for young generations like me to believe a politician in Ghana. And when it comes to governance, we look at our sportsmen that we are raising than our politicians. I'm not sure if... Okay. I think she wants to... No.
I just wanted to say that the
Okay.
stability that Ghana has had has helped it develop a
Yeah.
sense of morality, a sense of transparency,
That's right.
also a sense that people, like you said now, won't accept everything the politicians said. And democracy works this way. Thank you.
I sometimes think about the military problems cannot be solved by political solution, or political problem cannot be solved by military solution. In India, Pakistan, always 70 years, they are almost not coming on the table here and there. And they tried the track to diplomacy called the sports, like cricket or sometimes there. It really doesn't solve issues. Sometimes it's totally, I feel disappointed that there track to diplomacy or sports diplomacy inside the country gave the example. I don't know how the regional two different countries this sports diplomacy can work. How do you see that? You research that one.
Yeah. Sports diplomacy working. I think North and South Korea would be a perfect example for us to look at. If
Japan, South Korea, and Japan.
South Korea and Japan, but I'm talking about two enemies who don't see eye to eye coming together. The latest scenario we have now is North Korea and South Korea. For a very long time, we all know these guys don't see eye to eye. But the recent Winter Olympics brought them together and they formed one team, Korea. There was no North Korea at the Winter Olympics. There was no South Korea at the Winter Olympics. There was Korea at the Winter Olympics. So I believe India and Pakistan can draw some lessons from those two guys and work to the benefit of themselves. Because if North Korea and South Korea can do it, it means somebody else can also do it somewhere. That's what I can say.
Diplomacy of the Chinese.
That's right.
This was a very thing.
Yes.
They
Invited people.
May I?
Oh.
Sydney. What is happening in Brazil now? Soccer players are running for office. Why? They have money. They don't need money. They put aside the money. So there's no reason why they're going to be corrupted. And also, it started this movement where other soccer players decide to follow, not just soccer players, but many. As if you see here, movie people or TV show people become politicians or presidents, depending on what you see. But thing is, these people, they came from community. They were poor before. They knew, they faced it. The favela, right? Or be around the favela.
And I have friends who are soccer players, who are like 3 times FIFA winners, and I would love to connect with them actually. But what I see there is they experience that. I had a case like the other day. This woman told me, she said, "Oh, I grew up on the streets of Sonoma County." I said, "You are a white blonde lady. You don't know what it is. You know, even if you believe it, the only person who understands what racism is the ones who experience that." And I saw here in the room a lot of people use the word hate. They're confused. That's not the right feeling. You only know hate if you suffered hate. Because if you are somebody who has watched the Holocaust, or have your relatives, or being like tortured, or being victim of hate. But it's not hate. If I dislike it, or this made me uncomfortable, so people get confused about the words. And hate is a word that is too strong these days. And then love should be equally strong. And some people say, "Oh, I love you." No, you don't love me. Maybe you do, but you just want something with me. It happens a lot. So saying what you mean and mean what you say is very important these days. But people got confused because it's too much confusion here. We have internet access, but I feel like the time I quit Facebook, I feel so liberated because I still needed kind of somehow to be there for my business. But at the same time, I realized that I was spending so much time and I was learning less. So I had access to more information, but I started to become dumb because it's too much distraction and confusion. So I don't know. So this is like about soccer players or sports or people from community running for office. The people who felt like we had Obama. I mean, people, "Oh, he's not a good president." I don't know. Maybe he was a good president, but the Senate and the Congress was not doing a good job. I don't know. But the thing is, when you are there, you suffer on your own skin as women or women of color or men of color or minorities in general. We understand. I think everyone here in the room understands somehow what it is to be a minority. And it's very important. So that's important, minorities getting united. And then we teach people who are the majority. Because honestly, I believe the white, straight men, they had a chance. And now it's time for people of color, for gay people, and for women to be in power. Because clearly white men didn't get the job. They were confused. But I'm not. Thank you.
Well, you mentioned one example. I would like to mention one example regarding yeah, I am a far relative of the former president of the International Olympic Committee, Juan Antonio Chamarán. Okay. I can shout even because I am a journalist,
Yes.
so I prefer to shout. If you bring me the microphone, I can speak loud. It's not a problem. So yeah, basically, hello. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
No hay problema. So yeah, as I said, and as you know, in the 1992 we had the Olympics in Barcelona. This is another example about what are you trying to say. You know, maybe it was not the best example with Korea and Japan. Yeah, they had their fights in the past, you know, Korea and Japan as well. So it was a big success, you know, to organize a World Cup together in 2002. By the way, the Brazilians won against Germany the final.
No, I have to.
Yeah. So. But the only complaint that they had from FIFA, it was basically because they said the event has been great, but the only problem that it's already chaotic to organize a World Cup in one country. Imagine the logistics to organize it both at the same time. But coming back to the topic in Barcelona, I don't know if you know what happened in Spain before the democracy time. We had a dictatorship.
That's right.
And so it was the Olympic Games was a good chance to bring people together from different perspectives, and I will tell you why. Because there was a very powerful photo in the newspapers. Somehow, and I know, thanks to my relative, I know a little bit more about the negotiations. We can say even a little bit of blackmail, but at the end was a good one, you know. Everything, you know, people, even the Communist Party, conservatives, people coming from La Falange, which is the party of Franco, sadly Samaran. He was a journalist. To be honest, he was not from Falange. Basically, he just wanted to have a good position, so he was a little bit sneaky. He's saying that somebody who is a relative, so imagine who could say the other people who has less love. So, but yeah, that's the point. This could be another example of what you say, because even there is a very powerful photo. They are rowing together in a boat, and you have the socialists, you have the conservatives, you have the communists, and you have the right wing, thinkers, and they agreed to organize this event together. So this could be another example. Of course, it was less violent at the time, but coming back from the background that happened, the Olympic, the dictatorship and the civil war in Spain could be a good example.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other final questions or comments?
I'm not allowed to, but he told me anymore. But I thought you were just a photographer. That's amazing. Wow.
No,
Because
that's
I do
definitely-
photography. A lot of people say, "Oh, just a photographer." Thank you for shouting and speaking. Yes.